Welcome back, teachers. You're watching The Better Teacher. And with me today is G. Balasubramanian, a doyen in education. Sir, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So, today the topic of discussion is critical thinking. Is critical thinking missing in the current education system today?
Well, to say that critical thinking is missing in education system may not be correct, because I think the education system has least to do with critical thinking, because critical thinking is the human competency, human potential, and therefore critical thinking is a feature of the human mind, whether you have a curriculum or whether you don't have a curriculum. The question is whether the curriculum facilitates nurturing of the critical thinking in classroom is the best question that we can address to. I think the dynamics of education from the British period has been to create a set of people who can do a set of routine jobs. They were not expected to think differently. We have different types of thinking skills like lateral thinking, analytical thinking, parallel thinking, critical thinking, creative thinking, whatnot. But none of these thinking skills were nurtured, because all that what was expected was the learners to accept the given concepts and to reproduce them, apply them in a given situation. Therefore, the individual the human potential was clipped, and they were made to fall in line with what is expected out of them. But critical thinking, if you go and see a farmer, if you see a plumber, if you see a craftsman, you will find all of them have got a critical thinking. And therefore, I think we should examine critical thinking as a human skill beyond the curriculum.
Sir, I think we discussed in the previous episode of The Better Teacher where we were speaking of freedom to learn. I think that is when we focused on conditioning. I think the human brain is conditioned to an extent that we go only by a certain norms, and I don't think we break free from that.
You are right, but I would like to put a caveat for conditioning, because the external circumstances and external environments can create a situation for conditioning. Nevertheless, the human mind, human brain, and the thought architecture and the thought dynamics of individuals cannot be clipped. It happens whether you like it or not. So the critical thinking may manifest and get an expression at a particular point of time. So even if that is not expressed, that happens to be a feature of the human mind. And whether it's a child, in a school, or whether it's an old man, working in a farm or a factory, all of them have these thinking skills embedded in them as a gift of God.
Speaking of children and critical thinking, sir, what kind of support systems can we bring into the classrooms in schools to make sure they become critical thinkers?
That's a very good question, because the point basically is that we have been always providing knowledge in a very linear manner. We have been providing information and structured the information to provide a concept, to provide an understanding. We have not facilitated problem solving. We have not introduced the children case studies. We have not allowed them to reflect and then examine whatever they have done is right or wrong. Critical thinking encompasses almost all of these things. So I think what is important is you need a differentiated approach, where the teachers, instead of people who will convey information from the school, should create a real-time problem, and then facilitate a discussion in the classroom, seek their divergent opinions, appreciate perceptions, and then try to bring many possible solutions to a given situation. One solution may be acceptable, other may not be. But the very fact people are thinking and seeking different opportunities is the way we go forward for critical thinking.
Right. So I think there's a fine line between what is right and what is wrong in critical thinking. I think each person thinks differently, and solutions that might come up might not be the same from one person to another. So is practical thinking and critical thinking the same?
Well, uh, to certain extent, yes. To certain extent, no. Practical thinking may be really relevant to solve a given problem at a given point of time, but that may not be born out of critical thinking. That may be born out of convenience and be born out of the available resources. Critical thinking is indeed appreciation of the multidimensional impacts of the situations or resources on a particular problem, and then trying to resolve that in a way which maximizes the process, the ease of the process, and also finds a very pragmatic, very acceptable, and very purposeful solution.
Right. So you said pragmatic and practical. These days, workplaces are looking at critical thinkers. They want to hire more people who think critically. So, working backwards, how do you think we can prepare children from a very young age to become critical thinkers?
I think we remember to have discussed about freedom of thinking long back. I think it's very important once the freedom is of thinking is given, the children will be able to see many perspectives of the same problem, many perspectives of the same crisis, and they will be able to find one or the other way to solve the problem. I think there is the seed for critical thinking there, because to solve a problem there may not be one single solution. There could be several different solutions. Such solutions may vary from geography, maybe one geography to the other, maybe one time to the other, right? The same solution for at a given point of time may not be relevant at a different point of time. So, critical thinking is contextual, is an outcome of a given situation, conditioned by the time and the space.
Just remembered one thing when you said situation, sir. I think a lot of schools today are introducing situational based learning where children are given a lot of scenarios where they can, come up with the solutions and answers to it. I think this will help critical thinking or for a child to think differently and not in the same line.
Yeah, I think that's where the pedagogical intelligence of the teachers matters. For example, if I were teaching in Andaman Nicobar, if I were giving problems which are related to cyclone, a tsunami, and all that, children will be able to grasp and appreciate and come with different types of solutions. But if the same case I take to Rajasthan in the middle of a desert to a school, I think they will not be able to appreciate that. I think that's where the the intuition, the inner experiences, all that matters to solve the problem. So we cannot say that a given set of students have the competency of critical thinking, others don't have. Everyone has got a critical thinking competency, whether they have gone through a schooling system or not, they have it, but it gets expressed at a demand of a situation. I think that way we should create opportunities in school through case studies, through problem solving, so that our children become critical thinkers.
You just talked about schooling and education and learning, sir. So today, I think with the advent of AI, chat GPTs, and many such platforms, children are learning a lot of information. They don't have to go to a formal schooling or go to a classroom to learn a particular topic or a subject. So with that, the flow of knowledge that is coming into them, how do you think critical thinking will help them differentiate between what is right and what is wrong, and what to accept as it is and what to contemplate on or think about it twice?
A very important question in the modern context, because with the advent of technology, with the intervention of technology in the learning systems, you find the same concept is decorated, articulated, communicated in different perspectives. For both for creative purposes or for entertainment purposes, and therefore the children like to examine all aspects of such things, and therefore the pressure on thinking is huge in the children. And moreover, the value base for critical appreciation of a problem seems to be much less today. We want more for convenience, we want more for comfort, we want more for profits and benefits, critical thinking. But a real critical thinking process is immune to any profit making, any situation. A critical thinking process is always addressed to the human welfare, right? At a particular point of time, it has a nobler purpose than a smaller one. Yes, even for solving a simple technical problem, you may need critical thinking, but that's the start of it. But then critical thinking is a competency which needs to be nurtured for a universal coexistence, universal celebration of comfort and happiness.
I just had one question based on your previous answer. So, if you think if you can put a child in a situation which is tough, does critical thinking automatically come in, or do you need training for that?
Yes, the question is there are people who engage with a particular problem immediately as a response, but there are people who have not been exposed to this conditioning. So, I mean, repeated, opportunities for thinking might result in different models of thinking over there. As I told you earlier, there are different models of thinking. Yeah. Therefore, every critical thinking may not be a creative thinking. Every creative thinking may not be a critical thinking. So that's a challenge that you have. So you have to design problems, design case studies, and expose the children. And I think once a pattern is established, the human brain works on patterns. So if we institute patterns which will nurture critical thinking in the human brain, they will automatically come.
Great. Thank you so much, sir. I think the teachers watching us and I myself, we've learned a lot about what critical thinking is. I think it is just not restricted to putting yourself in a situation, but literally thinking outside the box to make sure that solutions are met.
True.
Thank you so much for answering the questions for us.
Thank you.
Dear
Varsha.
teachers, thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more. So far, we have discussed a lot of topics like peer assessment, freedom to learn, and critical thinking. Stay tuned for more such interesting topics.